He did it! He did it, Chewbacca! Chewbacca caught the golden snitch! Now he will become the queen of the Borg, right, Lizzie?
Wow, there was a lot going on in that scene, and that's what we're talking about today. Today is creative writing experiment number 8, in media res. In media res is a Latin term that means in the midst of things, and some stories start off with, well, a lot going on. Here's the beginning of Firestarter by Stephen King. "Daddy, I'm tired," the little girl in the red pants and green blouse said fretfully. "Can't we stop?" "Not yet, honey." He was a big, broad-shouldered man in a worn, scuffed corduroy jacket and plain brown twill slacks. He and the little girl were holding hands and walking up 3rd Avenue in New York City, walking fast, almost running. He looked back over his shoulder, and the green car was still there, crawling along slowly in the curbside lane. So at the very beginning of Firestarter, we know that there's a father, there's a daughter. The daughter is exhausted. The father is worried about being followed. They are in the middle of something. There's some type of conflict that's going on, and it's very tense, it's very action-packed, and it leaves us wanting more. Think of the Firestarter in contrast to the beginning of The Hunger Games, Chapter 1. "When I wake up, the other side of the bed is cold. My fingers stretch out, seeking Prim's warmth, but finding only the rough canvas cover of the mattress. She must have had bad dreams and climbed in with our mother. Of course she did. This is the day of the reaping." So with Susan Collins' The Hunger Games, we have a more traditional beginning. In fact, so traditional it's almost cliche, with the protagonist waking up from sleep, looking at her surroundings. Eventually she goes on to describe herself. Eventually we get details of what the setting is like through other characters and through exposition. We do have a little bit of in media res because she lets us know it is the day of the reaping. We might not know what that is yet, but we get a sense it's going to be important. And it is. So you can find a lot of other examples of in media res in other books and in films. If you look at any James Bond film, it starts off with an action sequence. James Bond is in the middle of a mission. Or if we think of my favorite movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones is in the middle of an adventure, leading him to find a golden idol, and trouble ensues. In both of those cases, the in media res event that happens isn't necessarily directly connected to the overall plot that happens in the movie, and that's okay. We get to know who these characters are by seeing them in the midst of things. In nonlinear stories, in media res is often used to let us know what's happening perhaps in the middle of the story or even very near the end of the story. I recently watched Limitless, that old Bradley Cooper movie. I think it was made about 10 years ago now. And I finally watched it and noticed that it had a fun in media res beginning to the film. Bradley Cooper is standing at the very edge of a skyscraper. Imagine my hands are a skyscraper. And he's getting ready to jump off of the skyscraper. Why would he do that? Well, in back of him, there's somebody beating down the door and getting ready to capture him or kill him. And he doesn't want that to happen, so he's just about ready to end his own life. That's where the movie begins, but then it takes us back several weeks or months. So that now has kind of become a cliche for some people, but I think it's still a fun way of telling a story. You show us a piece of the middle or a piece of the end, and then you go back in time and show us how the characters got to this place. So there's different ways of doing in media res. We have these characters in trouble at the beginning. We do see some flashbacks, but for the most part, the narrative is flowing forwards. We have Hunger Games. This is much more traditional, not necessarily an example of in media res, except for that little detail about the day of the reaping. So we know, hey, there's something going on in this world. We've got a conflict. These characters are in the middle of a situation. And then there's the movie examples like Indiana Jones, James Bond, or nonlinear films like Limitless. So here is your experiment today if you choose to accept it. Without worrying about where the story is going to go, I want you to create a scene, to write a scene, and you could write it in screenplay form if you like movies, or you can write it in prose if you like short stories or novels. So choose a format, script or prose, and write a scene that's in the middle of some type of action. That action doesn't need to be as dynamic and as wonderful as Chewbacca chasing the golden snitch, but try to be as cool as that. All right, so that's your experiment for today. And if you like these videos, please like and subscribe, leave a comment to tell us what you're working on, and have a fun creative day.